Hey folks, this is going to be a quick kind of tutorial style video of how to install a bed heater and a thermistor into the Railcore Z leveling bed, or it'll work for the non-ZL bed. We get some questions on this on occasion, and we're trying to improve our documentation and stuff, so I'm going to do a quick video on that. I know there's some printer noise in the background. I have a couple of Railcores printing right now, so hopefully you guys can hear okay despite that. So yeah, we're gonna get going on this. Should be a pretty quick little video. If you have any questions, type them in the chat. That's why I'm doing it as a live stream, so if anything doesn't make sense, you guys can ask for clarification. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. I'll keep an eye on the chat as I go. So hello folks as you trickle in. I always start with, I'm going to install the Keenovo first. Personal preference, it doesn't really matter, but if I installed the thermistor first, I could get RTB everywhere, and I hate RTB. So I'm going to install the Keenovo first. Now, this is a 250 ZL size bed, so it's a little smaller than the 300. The thermistor channel is behind the yoke instead of the front, but otherwise it's pretty much the same as a 300 ZL, like you would get in the kit. And this is a mag bed, so I'm gonna flip that upside down, and I'm gonna put the Keenovo on that, just like this. And I'm going to exit those wires on the same side as where the thermistor channel is. So the Keenovo install is pretty intuitive. Just peel off the 3M backing paper, flip that heater mat over, and I prefer to center mine. You can offset them towards the printing area, which would be towards the left and front, which would be more like this actually. But I prefer to center it because it seems to heat pretty evenly either way. And you don't have to be exact here. And then I start in one corner, and I'm just going to work my way back from that one corner so I avoid bubbles. And I work across in a diagonal, so I'm keeping the far point up. Just press my hand across. There's no real magic to this. There we go, and you can see it's a little crooked, and none of that matters. It's going to heat this mic 6 pretty evenly regardless. And then I just press it down really firm all the way across. Make sure it's all nice and secured on there. There we go. I have a Keenovo heater installed on my bed. So that's pretty simple. And this is a 24 volt. Usually they're the AC ones, but yeah. So that's the Keenovo install. And we flip it over, and the thermistor install gets a lot of questions. So we chose to do, this is for one of my several 250 ZLs. This is actually going on my original one. I stole the bed off of it for the aluminum Railcore, so I needed a new one, and thought, hey, that's a good time to go ahead and do a video. My thermistors are all tangled here. You can get these really cheap on Amazon, so I have a pack of a bunch of them here. Steal one out of the pack. Good enough. Okay, so with the thermistor, we chose to do a channel on top to try and get a little more even heating, but it does add, or a little more even temperature measurement, trying to measure a little closer to the print. It adds a little complication to the build, but we have personally felt it was worth it, so that's why we do this. And the important thing is, like this one here, I don't know if you guys can see this, but that wire has a big kink in it. I'm going to try and straighten that out, which is pretty easy to do. by hand and make sure that that is good and straight, because I don't want anything that's going to bulge up, preventing that wire from laying flat in that channel. So it's much straighter now. It's not perfectly straight, but it's definitely straighter than it was. So always watch for that. That's right at that that connection point where they connect the lead to the actual thermistor itself. And then the thermistor bead on mine is angled down. So I tend to try and make sure that that bead angles down into the bed, not away from it, to use that natural bend there to get some contact. So I lay it that way, right in that channel. And then what you want to feel for before you even begin to fasten this in with your RTV and your tape is you want to take something. I'm using a print, doesn't matter what, and just drag it across. And you want to make sure that the high point of that thermistor is laying down lower than the top of the bed. If for whatever reason the way it turned, like the way mine is turned right now, I can feel the top of that thermistor being proud of the bed, and I cannot push it down, that's going to be a problem. I'm going to have a bulge in the center of my bed, caused by that thermistor. So I need to kind of pull that out, and you can see it was kind of stuck in that channel, and turn it. I'm going to manipulate that part I was straightening earlier. And you just want to force that to lay nice and flat down in that channel. And the nice part is if you get it just right, and I'm using my fingernails to kind of push it in there. You can use something else if your nails are really short. It'll kind of hold itself down a little bit into the center. So I'm making sure that bead is firm against the center and down against the bed by the natural bend in the wire. So that's down. I have a little Kapton tape here. I'm just going to cut a little section of this tape. I'm going to cut that there, and I'm just going to use that tape right there to hold that a little in place. And I'm going to cut another little section off this corner here, and I'm going to hold it back here by the edge. And I'm doing this just to kind of help keep that wire from jumping around on me. So you can see that's just to hold it in place while I work with it. The next bit of confusion, I don't bury the head of this thermistor with RTV. That is a mess waiting to happen. You'll get bad readings. So I take my RTV. I've already cut the tip off and everything. You can get this at hardware stores. I use Kapton tape. You can get it on Amazon. It's a giant roll of it. Question from the chat. So I have, there's dust all over it. A gigantic roll of Kapton tape. Highly recommend this stuff. Especially for this use. If you're using my method, you want to use Kapton tape to secure it, and I'll show you why. So I start right where these thermistors. Let me pull one of these spares up so I can show you before I do this. Hold this up. So there's the black junction, the kind of shrink wrap tube over where they join the lead to the thermistor. And then there's this insulation, the clear insulation in the thermistor bead. What I try to do is I put RTV along this clear tube leading to the thermistor. I don't put it on the bead because RTV is an insulator. You don't want to insulate that bead from your bed, but you want to hold it down next to the bed. I don't tend to put RTV along the tubing because it's hard to control there. That tubing is thicker, the black tubing, and it's easier to create a bulge there. So I actually avoid that part a little bit. So I just take my RTV and I squeeze it right along that clear portion. And I'm not putting a ton in there, but you want to put some right down into that channel. Something like that. So let me give you a close-up of what that looks like so you can see what I've done there. So there's some RTV in the channel. I didn't flood it. I didn't cover the bed. I kept it mostly to the channel. And it's, you don't have to have a ton there. Just enough to cover that section. Because all we're trying to do is hold that wire in. We're not trying to glob it all over the bed. Then I take a little isopropyl alcohol. And this stuff all together smells just amazing. You guys can imagine. Because the RTV smells great. The alcohol smells great. And I'm just going to clean up right along the edges there. I didn't get much outside of it. But just that little bit that I did get outside, I want to clean that up. Just some paper towel, some isopropyl alcohol. Give it a second to dry. And then I go back to my Kapton. I cut just enough Kapton to cover that section. I use my thumb to make sure to press that Kapton down into the channel a little bit. And I cover across. Now, notice I didn't fill the whole channel. I don't have to fill the whole channel. I only need to hold this wire in. So I put the Kapton right across that section. So again, I'll give you a close-up here. Like that. Now I'm going to do that again, but with a little twist. So I'm going to take this little bit of Kapton here that I put on first, on the end, off. Now I pull that wire very carefully. I don't want to pull that part that I've done out. And I'm going to put just a little Kapton straight down in right here at the end. Just about, 5 millimeters from the end. Again, I'm not flooding the channel terribly. I'm not putting a ton in there. I don't want it to squish out. Then I lay the wire right down in it. I'm going to use my finger actually to clean that up a little bit because I got too much on the sides. I don't want that. Use this. It's actually still damp from before, so that's handy. So I'm not trying to get it all over the bed. I'm just trying to hold that wire in place. So I put some underneath it, put the wire down into it. Whoops, I'm making a mess. That's okay, I can clean it up. Put a little over the top. You can see I'm not just totally swamping this thing. Just enough. A little more IPA. Clean up that edge a little bit so my Kapton can stick. The Kapton will not stick to the bed if you have RTV there. You'll get bubbles and you'll get a gap, and that's not what we want. We don't want that RTV pushing up. So I clean that up really well. Now I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to get some more Kapton here. I'm going to put some Kapton right back over that. And then I do one more spot, kind of right in the middle. So I only do 3 sections of this. I don't fill the whole channel because if you're not yanking on that thermistor, it's not going to go anywhere. And this RTV holds the aluminum and the thermistor really well. Now this one I do a little bit longer. I'm just going to go ahead and use my finger and clean some of that up because I got a little much there. A little much there. And get a smaller bit of paper towel for this cleanup. And this is all the RTV I'm going to put in. So I'm done with the RTV now. I am not a believer in using, filling that channel with it. And also, I really stress that is not sticking up. That is actually down in the channel. I'm going to cut one last piece of Kapton, and this one's going to be bigger because I want to cover that whole section. I'm going to angle it so it covers that entire length of RTV. Oh, and when I put the Kapton down, I'm putting it on one side, and then I'm flattening it across, so I'm pushing it down into that channel as I go, so that the Kapton is down below the surface of the bed for all three of those. So there's my final result. See? So that's how I do mine. It's very clean and tidy. There's a depression actually instead of it being proud. It goes down in. Now, once this dries, and you can use, turn on the bed heater and dry that faster if your Railcore is ready for that. Once this dries, I do not rip that Kapton off. I have learned that if you try and pull that Kapton off, even once that RTV is dry, you have a high chance of pulling that out of the channel and having to do this over again. So what I'm going to do when that's dry is I'm going to take a razor blade, which I don't have one handy, unfortunately, and I'm going to trace right along the edge of that thermistor channel very carefully and just cut the tape right along each edge. And so that will leave a little bit of tape across the center, but because I pushed down, that tape won't stick up, it won't cause a bulge, it will be down in the bed, and it will help seal that Kapton or that RTV down and hold it down. So there will be three little pieces of the Kapton tape on top of the RTV underneath my bed forever. And I've been using beds put together this way for 2+ years now, and never had a thermistor pull out, including on the mag beds where the thermistor is out and exposed all the time. So this is essentially done. Just when that RTV is dried, I'll take a Stanley knife or a hobby knife and just very carefully right along the edge of those thermistor channels, trim that Kapton tape back on those three. This one will come all the way off, and I'll be done. So that's how I personally install the thermistor. It works very well for me, and like I said, I have yet to have one pull off. So any questions before I wrap up the stream on this one from anybody live? Otherwise, we'll use this as a tutorial ongoing for the kits, and hopefully it'll be helpful for people. For trimming, the RTV actually needs 24 to 36 hours before you trim it. If you take it up to 100C and just let it sit there at 100C for a while, you can do it in about 4 hours. But I typically let it go at least a full day. Any sooner than that, and the RTV will not be cured at all, and you'll get a gooey mess. When you go to trim it, the pressure of pushing the Kapton down will cause it to squeeze out the ends. So yeah, you want to give it plenty of time to cure. And that's why in the new instructions, we're moving this to the beginning of the build guide. All right, that was a great question. Thanks for that, Robert. And I think I'm going to wrap up the stream. Let's see. Yeah, there's a cure time listed on the RTV tube. Yeah, it says allow 24 hours to fully cure. So yeah, give it at least 24 hours, and you should be good to trim that down. And when you do trim it, be very careful not to hit any of the wires, obviously, or that'll cause a real issue. It'll short out to the bed, or you'll just have a short in general. So, all right, thanks guys, and I'll get this posted for a tutorial on the new bolt guide.